Welcome to the Fantasy Syndicate Podcast with your hosts, Joshua Poniatowski and Alex Taylor. Let's talk football.
Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Syndicate Podcast. My name is Joshua Poniatowski, and as always, I'm here with the late, great Alex Spaghetti Legs Taylor. What's going on, Alex?
What? Hey, I do the squats at the gym all the time. Come on. Hey, football's back. It's a good time to be a fan. I'm excited.
Yes, so we got a lot of good stuff to talk about today. Before we jump into it, exciting announcement. We have launched and our draft kit is available. So if you're interested, and the crazy part is we are giving it away 100% free. So in the draft kit, just, full free, 100%. So, we outline all 32 teams, off-season changes, talk about scheme fits with coaches. We do rankings, of course, fades, buys, and running back handcuffs, in-depth analysis of running back handcuffs. So check out the website, get it for free, hit us up. We'll send it to you.
Let us do the work for you guys,
yeah.
We're sitting there slaving away looking at stats. We're trying to make it easy for you guys.
Yes, exactly. So all you got to do is look at a document and be like, all right, this is who I should draft, this is who I should handcuff, and this is why I'm fading certain people. But this week we're trying something different. So instead of doing a rankings, this is going to be something new where it's called Prove Me Wrong. The way it works is each of us has kind of picked a player that we like or love on our draft list. And then the other person is going to prove them wrong, like why that's a bad pick. So it'll be interesting.
Can't be done. My guys are studs. You're gonna crash and burn. It's gonna be great.
Exactly. So, but before we do that, we're gonna jump into news around the league, and we're gonna do preseason, just kind of a quick rundown of preseason week 1, what it looked like. So I'm just gonna run through this quickly. So Christian Kirk saw limited playing time. He only saw 3 snaps in the slot. It was mostly Gabe Davis, Brian Thomas pretty much was out there with first team. So if he doesn't see the field, that's really going to limit his production. Titans rotated Pollard and Taji. I think that's how you say his name, right? Steelers, Najee and Jalen, as well as Commanders rotated Brian Robinson, Eckler. So all these backfields seem to be split. Obviously, there's still a lot of time to develop, but you never know. Jahmyr White, my dude, he played 79% of first-team snaps, and he had 100% of the opportunities. So I am still super high on him. I'm glad to see that in the preseason. Jerome Ford, James Cook, Pacheco, they all saw 100% first-team snaps. I feel like surprising. Chase Brown, he saw 100% first-team snaps. But Mixon was hurt, so that's expected. Marquise Brown left with an injury. Rice, Kelsey, Xavier stock going up. And then Kobe Parkinson, he is kind of late, but he's tight end 1. They just paid him a bunch of money. And he may be a late round sleeper for tight end pick, especially on that Rams offense. And talking about tight ends, Mark Andrews about an hour ago got in a car accident. So I know, kind of crazy.
It's rough. I didn't even see that, so I gotta, we gotta obviously get some reports and see what's going on, how bad it's supposed to be. But so unfortunate, right before the season starts.
Yeah, so it might be absolutely nothing.
But for us, preseason's been fun. It's been exciting. Obviously some of these committee situations are gonna be tough, and that's why none of them are very high up in the rankings because of that. A lot of the rookie quarterbacks looked really good. At times, they all had some moments where maybe they didn't. But did you see Stetson throwing 4 picks, but then still has a game-winning drive
and then winning the game? Yeah.
But it's fun. It's fun to see everyone out there running around.
For sure. And the rookie quarterbacks, I feel like for the most part they look pretty darn good. So yeah. But so it'll be preseason updates. We're going to jump into it. So we'll start with you, Alex, because you got the QB position. So who you love, who you like, who you got?
All right. You will not be able to prove me wrong on this one. For my QB, I got my number 1 on my personal rankings, Josh Allen. He's finished number 1 fantasy QB the last 2 years. He's been over 400 fantasy points in my scoring setting for the last 4 years. 4,000 passing yards the last 4 years. Only in his 6-year career, he's only had under 500 yards rushing once. He's getting it done in the air. He's getting it done on the ground. Diggs is gone. He really gets to take over the team. It's like this is his team. He doesn't have to
Okay.
kind of share the spotlight with anybody. It's not like, rookie Keon Coleman's going to be run over on the sideline, jawing his mouth off at him.
Right.
Proven stud, still in the prime of his, prime age of his career. You lost Diggs, sure, but I think that thing that opens up everyone else around him. Two great running tight ends, good running back. None of his receivers are top tier, maybe, but maybe that benefits him. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. So full transparency, I adjusted Josh Allen's rank. I moved him up a little bit. So I'm not quite. Yeah. So I did move him up a little bit. I'm not quite as fading hard as I
You
was
had him at
before.
5, right?
I did. Yeah. So I mean, it wasn't much. I moved him up to 4. I'm giving him a little bit more
you were going for
respect.
gasps.
I was but yeah, 100%. So this is why Josh Allen's a bad pick. So Vegas, who's probably smarter than me, right? Yeah, maybe not.
Smarter than all of us.
Yeah, they have him hitting 3,800 passing yards, which typically for him, he's 43, 44 range. So we're talking almost, 400 to 600 yards difference in passing yards. 26 touchdowns. Now, of course, the saving the grace is going to be that rushing side of the ball, but there's going to be some regression, right? He's not rushing for 15 touchdowns again this year. It's not happening. I'll bet you money. It's not going to happen. Joe Brady, talking about rushing, took over as offensive coordinator. When that happened, the Bills ran the ball almost 10% more. This is an Alex Taylor stat, so 10% more once he took over. So they're going to run the ball more. That's obviously impacting his passing yards. He has 0 weapons. Curtis Samuel is his most veteran receiver, and he averages 700 yards. He's never broke 700 yards passing yards. I know Dalton Kincaid's the talk of the town. Second-year tight end. Tight ends historically have never been amazing. It's taken them time to develop. And his most veteran presence is the running back, James Cook. So for me, it's just too rich. He's too rich. He's going late second, early third. We're talking about guys like Laporta, Kelsey, Pacheco, Nico, Olave. And with how deep quarterbacks are this year, it's just, for me, I'm not buying where he's going.
You didn't prove me wrong, but you made some good points. And I will say the QB position, it is very deep, and I do kind of like waiting on it this year. It doesn't really have a lot of total top end kind of guys. Maybe Josh Allen doesn't reach as much as he's done in the past. That still doesn't mean he's not going to be the number one fantasy QB.
Quarterback one.
I mean, you look at Mahomes had a bad year, and there's maybe chances he's got better weapons. Jalen Hurts was really starting to struggle there near the end of last year. I think people are starting to figure him out. Is the tush push still viable without Jason Kelsey there? We'll see. Yeah. So I still think he's the number one fantasy QB. Whether or not he's worth a crazy reach, probably not. I would prefer waiting on the QB position overall, but he's still number one.
Yeah, and maybe he does finish as number one, but it's not going to be as dominant as it has been in the past, right? He might barely finish QB1. He's not going to finish by 30 to 60 plus points like we typically see. Yeah. So I just think the ADP sale is a little too high for me when that huge upside isn't there anymore. But yeah, okay. So moving on from Josh Allen.
Yeah, what running back did you give me?
Yes. So running back for me, this is a guy I've spoken about before. I love him. Jahmyr Gibbs. He's year 2 running back, right? So historically, running backs have broken out in year 2. And I'm not even going to talk about Gibbs right away. I'm just talk about the perception of Gibbs, the theme of Gibbs, right? So year 2 running back typically historically break out. Detroit's defense last year, they were weakest position was cornerback. Their secondary got exposed. I think they were top 3 in worst pass defenses. They gave up the most yards. They were top 6 in pass touchdowns against them from a defensive perspective. So they went out, they got cornerbacks in the draft. They actually drafted a first round and a second round cornerback with those
And
picks.
they traded
got
for
some,
Buccaneers Carlton Davis.
and they
Third round
traded
pick.
for, 100%. So
He's
they
getting
got
up a little up there, but he's still a great corner.
Yeah, and so they went out, they got guys. They were like, hey, we know this is our weakness. We're going to invest draft capital. We're going to, pick up, make some trades to bolster our cornerback position. Well, both of their first round, second round picks are now injured. And when we talk about right. Yep. So ankle and I think upper body, some type of pectoral thing going on. But so we're talking about what makes a great fantasy producing player. It is a team with a elite offense, which the Lions have, and a team with a terrible defense, which the Lions have pretty much from a passing perspective,
so they gotta
right?
keep scoring.
So, right. So like it's kind of like a perfect storm there. Next is Montgomery. I know that's going to be, talk of the town. Well, what about Monty? Last year he snaked a ton of tight ends. Well, so yes, Montgomery's there. However, he has been injured every single year. So we're talking 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. Every year he's gotten injured. So, I mean, it's going to happen. So he's going to at least be out for 4 games, even if he is not out for 4 games. Okay. So I broke down the opportunity share. After week 7 is when they let Gibbs loose, right? Let Gibbs loose, let him play. He had a 60% opportunity share on average when Monty was in the game. He saw a 13% target share out of the backfield. This is not a receiver. This is a running back, which is crazy. He, on 3rd and 4th down, he was on the field 60% of the time. 2-minute drill, 83% of the time over Monty. And I know red zone is going to be a worry, right? That's where Monty thrives. Touchdowns. He was in the red zone opportunities 55% of the time. So he is running back 1, tried and true. People love to talk about the eye test. Right? Like Jahmyr Gibbs passes all the eye tests. He's crazy. So what I will say though about Monty is that if you miss on Gibbs, I like him as a late pick. Where's the ADP? So that's my case for Jahmyr Gibbs. That's my case on why you should draft him at his current ADP. Second round, like nothing too crazy, right? He's not even going first anymore. High upside. You're getting
it's very early second round and borderline
it is.
first.
It's still
and he's
second.
right on that turn.
Yeah,
and
it's still
so
second.
That's my issue. I mean, he does pass the eye test, and he is a very fun, electric runner. There is no denying that. He did, before even getting into the other stuff, he did already tweak his hammy. That's going to linger.
I love it. As long as it's a grade 1 and not grade 2, give me injuries now. Drop that ADP. Let me take him for even more value. So, but yes, that's the issue.
But yes, so overall, my issue with him is not the player. It's the situation. He's in a position where he's never going to get enough red zone touches to warrant that draft capital. Last year, he had 43 red zone carries and passing targets as well. Our boy Monty, even missing 4 games, had 52. And maybe you're like, oh, just a random occurrence, whatever. Let's go back to 2022. Yeah, Jamal Williams lead the league in red zone carries with 53 plus 2 passing targets. He didn't really catch very much. Swift, the younger, more explosive back, he only had 36 total. Dan Campbell has consistently shown he likes a veteran power back down near the goal line. David Montgomery weighs 25 pounds more than Gibbs. He's too light for what Dan Campbell likes down in the trenches. He's too small. And Jahmyr's season started slow, and then he took off a bit. Monty got hurt, and he kind of had those explosive games, and everyone was like getting all excited. The narrative was like, oh, he's gonna take the main role now. He's the guy. But then looking at when Monty came back, the last 7 games of the season, he had 4 games scoring in the single digits, and that was after he'd already broken out, as everyone liked to say, all season. He never scored in the double digits in half PPR without scoring a touchdown. So he just doesn't get enough quantity of actual yards or red zone opportunities. He only cracked 100 all-purpose yards. That's a lot of it was receiving too, 5 times on the season. So he's efficient, he's explosive, but he's just not going to get enough huge yardage games or red zone, plunges for a quick 1-yard touchdown. So for me, he just isn't worth the draft capital.
So do you think he is a top 10 running back? Let's start there. Do you think he would fit within the top 10 running back scheme for the year?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
So, I mean, if we're talking talent, like I say, he does pass the eye test.
Yeah.
I have no problem call him top 5 talented or running back in the NFL.
Right.
From a fantasy perspective, he just isn't going to get enough touches to warrant that over a guy who's a true bell cow like Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley, guys who are going to be the focal point of their offense week in, week out. They're going to get all the big time touches. Those are kind of guys I'm going to prioritize. But I mean, I still like Gibbs, and obviously he is explosive, and he's going to have some crazy games for you. I just like him more as I would say like late second, maybe early third round pick. Like
I gotcha.
I got him at running back 6, but it's probably going behind, or 7. I mean, but it's going behind a lot of receivers and stuff too. So I kind of like him around
Right.
20 overall range.
Yeah. So I mean, I love my upside, and Gibbs' upside of all the running backs that are, not undersized, aren't typically injury prone. I know he has his hammy thing, but that's, not super accustomed for him. He literally has Bijan, CMC, Brees type of upside, right? Like if anything happens to Monty, we're talking historic year 2 ridiculous numbers. So I love that. And talking about consistency, I know he has a C consistency grade on our draft, on our draft kit. So that isn't great, but he literally won people weeks, right, with how well he did, even though he had to score touchdowns to do it, right? If you take touchdowns away from everybody, I mean, Josh Allen's a nobody. So I'm just saying, can't be stealing touchdowns from people.
Just
but
saying, not once, did he have a double digit point without a touchdown. I don't know.
I got you. Well, touchdowns are important. I know they're not a great metric to measure. Usually wide receivers or I guess running backs, but still they're there. They're going to happen. Like they're going to score touchdowns. And I get your point. I'm not fading Gibbs though in any format. So, and if you end up with Gibbs, I'm gonna get on you about it. So you better not
I
in any
will
of
a
our
little.
leagues.
Speaking of, this may be a little off tangent.
Yeah.
I like a very diverse portfolio amongst my leagues. It's very rare for me to double dip. Like I gotta really
I
like someone
see.
for me to double dip on 2 teams. Like for the most part, I'm kind of
Interesting.
purposely no, I already have him there. Like let me diversify and get him here. So I mean,
Yeah.
I can almost guarantee you I will probably have Gibbs at least once, but probably not more than that.
And I that's a smart for sure. That's tangent, but smart draft strategy. Opposite, like give me the guys that I like, and if they hit, like I am good all over the place. But so
Yeah, but
different
if
thought
they don't,
processes.
your whole year is just
I
screwed.
know. Well, that's
So
why waiver wire, you make moves, that kind of stuff. But yeah, I got you. All right, so moving on to wide receiver. Who you got? Who you like?
Well, the guy who just shipped out of town for my quarterback, Stefon
Hmm.
Diggs, now a man playing for the Houston Texans. He is the definition of the "I'm him" receiver, a true bona fide stud. I got him slotted as my wide receiver 20 on my rankings. Super reliable, 1,000 yards for 6 straight years. Hasn't missed more than 1 game in 6 straight seasons. Last season he did struggle down the stretch, but as we've talked about a couple of times now, Buffalo
Always.
did up their run game, and his targets took a
Hmm.
hit. He had single-digit targets in 7 of the last 9 games. Now he goes to a Houston offense that threw the ball more than the Buffalo Bills did, and projected, throw the ball much more than them even this year because they only really started that running game halfway through. Stroud doesn't like to run the ball nearly as much. He had 160 yards and 3 touchdowns. Those are just kind of the gimme quarterback just kind of running up the gut. They're not like a Josh Allen, like I'm taking over with my legs kind of situation.
Right.
And this is the one thing that kind of, I'm sure you're gonna use to hate on him, but I kind of think might be exciting. It's the first time since probably his rookie season where he might not be guarded as the number 1 receiver.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to see what NFL defenses do. Do they still, do they give him the top DB, or does Nico Collins get the top DB? And that's going to
Hmm.
determine a lot of his success. If he's still getting guarded as number 1, sure, maybe the target share is less. But if he's getting guarded as a number 2, target share is less. But if they're throwing more than Buffalo will, I think there's still a great potential there. And like I said, just still a stud. So I like the guy.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm absolutely going to talk about him not being wide receiver 1, but before I do that, let's just talk about his age. So we talk about age cliffs and how important it is players dropping off, right? For wide receiver, it's like 30 years old. That's typically the drop off. 31, once they turn 31, they see about a 30 to 40% reduction in their production. So I don't know why that rhymed. I don't know why I said it that way, but they reduce their production about 30 to 40%. He is turning 31 in November. So we're going to be mid-season. He is historic.
Months of prime stuff.
Oh, okay. 30 is not that prime, but 31, we've seen it year in and year out. Week 10 hits, he becomes a bum. Like, he is a terrible wide receiver 1 on your team. He does nothing. I think the same thing is going to happen in Houston. And even before we get there, he is not wide receiver 1 anymore. He is on a new team. He's got a new quarterback. Who was with the Bills for 4 years. He built that rapport with Josh Allen. He has to start all over, start fresh. He's not their number 1 wide receiver anymore. He might not even be their number 2, right? Based off of who they decide to go to.
Tank can't stay healthy. That guy's so tiny. There's no way he's staying healthy all season.
Yeah, so I mean, even Tank Dell, though, what about Dalton Schultz, though? Your guy, the red zone target machine that you were talking about. So there is just a lot of offensive weapons.
I'll give you that.
Yeah, I'm using the same argument you did that for Gibbs. Right? There's a lot of offensive weapons happening. And Diggs right now, talking about Vegas projections, he's projected to put up about 900 to 1,000 yards, about 6 touchdowns, which is like 1,000-yard season for receivers, fantastic. But those are like Scary Terry numbers, right? Like Scary Terry is 1,000-yard, 5-touchdown machine, like year in and year out. But Diggs is going at wide receiver 20 when Scary Terry is going, where's he at? Like wide receiver like 30 something. So we're talking like 4 rounds difference for a guy who isn't the locked in number 1. He's just too high, and new team. I just am not drafting him at that stock, that draft capital, and I've actually lowered him in our rankings already. I've already gone in and adjusted him and moved him down even a little bit more.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like that.
From where he was at. So
I can't wait to prove you wrong about trying to prove me wrong.
I know. So all right, I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, he's a stud. Sure, he's not gonna have like maybe as much targets as he's had in the past, but I think he's still very talented, and should still put up like to me. I think he's just a very high floor in that range. Maybe he might not have the upside as some of the guys around him at his age, and it kind of depends on the makeup of what you've drafted at that point. Yet, I mean, if he's going like 4th-ish round. Kind of depends if you want high floor or if you're looking for more of a high upside guy. But I don't know. I think he's getting kind of slept on just because people are kind of like, oh, he's over the hill. But I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, and I would agree that there is a high floor for him as far as like what you can expect out of him. So I would say that safe pick for sure is maybe there, but still, wide receiver 20 might be a little stretch for me.
All right, let's move on to tight ends.
Moving on to tight ends. So again, I've talked about this man before, but Kittle, I love the dude. 49ers, he's literally a stud every year. It doesn't matter. Since where is he at? So since 2018, he has been a top 5 tight end. When he's healthy, he is a top 5 tight end. Does not matter. Last year, he was number 1 in 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50-yard receptions. His ADOT score, I know we've talked about this before, so average depth of target was about 9.4. So they're letting it loose. They're throwing the ball deep to him. He's just not some dunk-off kind of guy. He also had one of the top 3 in yak yards. His yards per route run, which we haven't talked too much about before, but he was number 1 last year in tight ends with 2.19 yards per route run. And for those that don't know, essentially what yards per route run is dividing the player's total reception yards by the number of routes that they ran. And the reason why this typically is a good predictor of success is because it eliminates touchdowns, right? We talked about those are dependent. It also eliminates how many actually routes that they ran. So like a guy who maybe got 50 routes or a guy got 100, how productive were they with those routes? And Kittle was the best. 19% target share. Ayuk, I don't think he's going to be leaving the Niners, but if he does for some reason, that's going to go up even more. And he's tight end 6 or 7, right? Like you're not paying a whole lot to get him where he's going right now. And I know you're going to talk about the Shanahan scheme. So let me share why. Yes, I know you're talking about that. So let me share why this won't be as much of an issue this year. So Fantasy Stats did a breakdown last year, and they looked at which tight ends had one of the most challenging schedules. And the Niners and Kittle were the top of that list. I think they were top 2, top 3 on that list. So he was facing great defenses against the tight ends. So Shanahan schemed around him. This year, they did the same analysis, and they found that of all of the tight ends, he was number 2 on the list to see an improved schedule against tight ends. So sure, Shanahan, of course, there's going to be games that they're going to scheme around him, but for the most part, it's not going to be as severe or as consistent as it was last year.
To clarify that, it's not like the number 2 easiest. It's just the number 2
Correct.
difference
Most
from where
improved.
he was. So he was like really
Yes.
bad, and now it's like probably middle of the pack. I'm assuming.
Yes. So
something
most
like that.
improved. Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Got it.
so
Just
not
just
the
make sure.
easiest, but most improved for sure.
Who's
Yeah.
got the
So I think
easiest?
that's gonna. I would have to go back and look. I don't know that off the top of my head, but I can post it on Twitter for those of you wondering.
I mean,
But yeah, I'm
predictive
not sure.
defenses are always tough. You got so much
Of course.
turnover. It's a whole team. It's a whole scheme.
Yeah.
It's tough. Obviously you like to look into it a little bit, but I'm trying to get like too wrapped up in it. Anything else on your
That's
your
all
pro
I
Kittle
got.
side?
It's all you. Hit it.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Tell me
Well,
why I'm wrong. Prove it.
he's actually. You said Diggs turns 31 in November. He's actually it turns 31 in October, so he's 1 month older than Diggs. So if you want to play the age card, and
Yeah.
last year was his best season in 4 years. He
Mhm.
squeaked out one. We had another one that was like just last year was like really close. Even in his best year in 4 years, he had 6 games under 5 points. That's a straight dud status.
Yeah,
And
it's
like I said,
bad.
it's only getting worse. We gave him a B minus RG score, which in
Yeah.
our consensus top 5 was the lowest. He was the only one with a B minus. Everyone else was B's or plus.
Mhm.
He only had 90 targets last year. That puts him tied at 9th at the position. 13 red zone targets puts him tied at 8th at the position. 3 red zone touchdowns, tied for 14th. Both of those red zone stats are behind Mark Andrews, who only played 10 games. And I guess apparently because of this car accident, we're going to have to see if he's going to only play 10 games again this year. I don't know. That
Yeah.
kind of threw that stat a look, really randomly at me. His 19.1% actually team total targets was 7th of the tight end position. So it's like his stats, for a guy who, we're giving a top 5, I think we got him at with a 5 spot in our combined rankings. He's really
That's
not
because of
getting
me.
these crucial red zone stats or looks, that I
Mhm.
really want and like depend on. He did lead the league. He had 18 catches over 20 yards, which was very, very,
Yeah.
fun.
Deep
He's
ball
a great
machine.
guy to root for. I do like him as a person. He's fun. I love that he's like down to just getting the blocking as well.
Yeah.
He's on the offensive side of 30. He's not as involved in the offense with total targets and red zone targets as much as I would like for how early where he's going. He's like I said, I do like a diverse portfolio, and I like the guy. He's a guy I might draft like once just to kind of like have on a team. But
Yeah.
he's not anyone I'm like relying on for week in week out quality numbers. If I'm splurging on a tight end, it's going to be somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, tight end 6 or 7, I feel like is not crazy splurging, right? Like, to me, I feel like that's somewhat reasonable for a tight end pick. I know you like Evan Ingram and stuff like that,
Well, you
but
say tight end 6 or 7, but what do you have as like your tight end 2?
well, I have him as my tight end too, yes, for sure. Which is why our rankings are so
So
skewed as far as where he's going. Yeah, but that's who we got, everybody. So those are the guys. Tell us who you agree or don't agree with. If you think you should fade some of these guys or not, let us know. Hit us up on Twitter, email. again, we're giving away our free Dynasty draft kit. So go to our website at syndicatefantasy.com. Ask us questions. We're happy to, answer them on the show. And as always, go steal a championship. See y'all later.
Peace out.